Hello everyone, this is Stream 6, Group 12 presentation, the market view presentation. Our members are Qianyu Zhang, and Wenkai Gu, and Jialun Zhang. For the introduction, the foreign exchange market is an essential and significant part of the financial. Today, I'd like to compare two currencies. First part is AUD to USD. Another pair is AUD to GBP. Through the three indicators, each of them, we will discuss what the exchange rate changes to appreciation or depreciation in next 3 to 6 months. And our first indicator would like to talk is inflation rate. Okay.
Hi, I'm Wenkai Gu. I'd like to talk about one of the foreign exchange rate indicator, which is inflation rate, and I will compare the UK and Australia first. From the graph we showed on PPT, we can see the inflation rate of Australia is higher than the inflation rate of the UK during September 2016 to March 2017. We assume that Australian dollar will depreciate against the GBP, cause the high inflation in Australia will cause less demand for Australian export. Therefore, it will be less demand for Australian dollar, so the demand curve will shift to the left. Meanwhile, the demand for import from UK will increase, cause hyflation in Australia. The goods from United Kingdom will be relatively cheaper. Then there will be more supply of Australian dollar, and the supply curve will shift to the right. Finally, we assume the Australian dollar will depreciate against the GBP in 3 to 6 months. The next one, we will compare the AU to USA. From the graph showed above, compared to the inflation rate between Australia and the USA, we see the inflation of Australia account for a higher position than the USA, which means the demand from America for Australian export will keep going up. Therefore, the demand for Australian dollar will decrease. On the other hand, a relative lower inflation rate in the USA tend to increase the import from Australia. Then the supply of Australian dollar will rise by proportionally. The demand curve will shift to the left and the supply curve will shift to the right. As a result, the Australian dollar will depreciate against the USA dollar. Next part, my teammate will talk about the GDP growth rate.
Hi, hello. My name is Qianyu Zhang, and I'm going to talk about the GDP growth rate. So, this slide shows the Australia and the USA growth rate picture, and also the forecasted picture. So from the graph, we can see the economic growth of Australia is 2.6 at 2016 and keep constant to 2017. Meanwhile, the economic growth rate of the USA increased from the 1.5 to 2.3% through the GDP growth rate of America increased by a little amount, and the GDP growth rate of Australia unchanged. Australia GDP growth rate is still higher than the GDP growth rate of the USA. Therefore, the import of Australia from America will increase. We suppose the supply of AU dollar will increase proportionally, and the supply curve will shift to the right. At the same time, a relatively high growth rate in Australia will increase the level of overseas borrowing. Hence, the demand of Australia dollar will increase and shift the demand curve to the right. Finally, the exchange rate of Australia dollar against the US dollar is difficult to predict in advance. And the GDP growth rate of Australia remained constant between the year 2016 and 2017. Similarly, the GDP growth rate of the UK is predicted to decrease from 1.9% to 0.8%. A comparatively higher GDP growth rate will increase the import of Australia from its trade partner, United Kingdom, which lead the supply of Australian dollar to increase. The supply curve of Australian dollar will shift to the right. Meanwhile, the higher GDP growth rate will also increase the overseas borrowing of Australia. Then, the demand of Australian dollar will also improve by some accident. The demand curve will shift to the right. And to the last, so the exchange rate of Australian dollar against the GBP is also difficult to predict. Okay. And next part is for the exchange rate.
As graphs show above, we can see the exchange rate of AUD and USD decreasing from September 2016 to March 2017, which is the same as the predict of inflation rate. And the other exchange rate forecast of AUD to GBP is constant for the period we predict, which is different from what we predict before, as the exchange rate between AUD and USD, also the AUD and GBP, should be predicted from all kinds of indicators. We could, to our conclusion, the exchange rate of Australian dollars against US dollars will depreciate between our period. The exchange rate of Australian dollars against GBP will remain constant or depreciate by some extent. Okay, that's all of our presentation and the reference list below on these 2 pages. Okay, thanks for listening anyway.